Yeah, we pretty much tell people if there's someone sitting on your pew and you don't know who they are, you should welcome them.
Planting core memories of love and experience and connection at church is a powerful gift.
They buy the cookies, we save the money, and we raise the money for the church.
This is Pod Strangely Warmed, a place where we tell the good Methodist story, where we have conversations that invite followers of Jesus to seek after that loving, just, and free world that God imagines for us all, and have a little fun along the way. Hey, Pod Strangely Warm family, welcome back. Today we continue in our series looking at our multiplication masterclasses. How do we help the church move from a spirit of welcome to deep belonging? And today with us on the podcast is Stacey Piyakhun, our Director of Multiplication and our co-host for this season and series. Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to be back. I want to hear more about your vacation when we get off camera. It looked like y'all had a lot of fun.
We had a great time.
Very good. We're also joined today by Kissa Vaughn, pastor at St. Barnabas United Methodist Church in Arlington, and overall amazing human. Kissa, thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
As we get started today, the Pod Strangely Warm folks know me pretty well. They've gotten to know Stacey pretty well, but we'd love to hear a little bit more about who you are and who are the people of St. Barnabas.
St. Barnabas is an incredible church in South Arlington, just north of I-20, and we sit right next to Martin High School. So if you're familiar in the Arlington world, that's kind of a good landmark. It's a church, we've been there 3 years, and it is an incredible lay-led congregation that is very mission-minded. We call ourselves the church that makes a difference. And so that's really our focus, is how can we make a difference in our little corner of the world in which God has placed us, and then how can we make a difference in the larger world as well. So it's a great congregation, and we just do lots of unusual things, different things. We try all kinds of things. No one's afraid to see what happens. And that actually came out of about a year ago. I was in worship, and I very clearly heard God say to me, just say yes. And so we've been saying a lot of yeses, which for a planner like me is a little scary.
Fair,
Frightening.
fair.
Requires a lot of just trust that if God leads it to us, God will make a way for it. And we've seen it happen again and again. And so now we're kind of like, yeah, we're going to say yes to that. And have a congregation that's willing to try things, not knowing what's going to happen. So, but they kind of have it in their DNA. They just didn't know they had it in their DNA. So it's a great church.
Kissa, I got to call you on something for a second. I asked you to do two things.
Oh.
And as a good and faithful pastor, you did one of the two things.
Yes.
I asked you to let us know a little bit about who you are and who your church is. And you immediately told us all the amazing things about St. Barnabas, which we are glad to know as the Horizon Texas Annual Conference. Can you give us a little window into yourself, too?
Sure. Yeah. I have been in the pastorate for over 30 years, which I say out loud, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? And I'm still young and sparkling.
You started when you were 5. That's the way it goes.
But I went to school at Perkins. I served for 5 years in the Arkansas Annual Conference before I transferred to what was the Central Texas Conference. And then I've been here ever since. I met my husband and we got married. He's a deacon in the church. His name is Doug. And he currently is under appointment to teach high school math. And if you don't
God bless him.
If you don't think that's a mission field, that's a mission field in a high school.
Bridge church to community.
Yep.
And we have 2 children. Our son is 15, and his name is Hamilton. He's at senior high camp this week,
Nice.
Along with his dad. And we have a daughter who is almost 10. This month, she will be 10, and her name is Madison.
And Madison is here with us today, and
She
we're going to get to hear
is.
from her a little bit later, kind of in a bonus addendum to this episode. She's an amazing human doing some amazing stuff. She's a part of that community that is saying yes to what God is doing at St. Barnabas.
And we also have a brand new puppy at our house, long-haired wiener dog named Daisy. who is kind of a mess. So, she's a puppy.
She's a puppy.
She's a puppy.
That's part of the definition.
The children convinced us they needed a puppy, and we heard, we'll help take care of her. And those children, they just lied right to us.
Yes. You say yes.
We said yes, and now I'm like, why did I say yes?
Oh.
So
Pop-Tart, our puppy, is 1 year old, and we walked through the same thing.
There you go.
My Enneagram 1 wife put together this wonderful chore chart thing that worked for like a month and then didn't work. And then we took away the money, and they had to earn it back. And now all of a sudden we don't do poop patrol anymore. It's great. Offline, we can work through some of that because that is a real thing. When you're not, and you gave us a little bit of window into this, but when you're not being Pastor Kissa, what gives you life? What gives you joy? What kind of helps you come alive?
I'm a gourmet cook, so I
Nice.
love to cook and entertain and have people in our home. So I'm always trying some new recipe out on my friends. I'm like, who do you try a recipe out on it if you
Your
can't try it on your friends?
Yeah.
So I love to do that and, play with the puppy a lot. So because I'm the puppy's person, because not the children. It's me.
What's the latest, greatest recipe you've tried?
Whipped feta with roasted grapes and balsamic vinaigrette on it.
Okay.
Pretty delicious,
Okay.
let me say.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That sounds pretty good.
it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also a recipe that if you told me for 20 years you must come up with something creative every day, I don't think I ever would have gotten to whipped feta, balsamic vinaigrette, and roasted grapes.
Yeah, it's
I wouldn't
really
have gotten
good.
to roasted grapes.
Right.
Who thinks about roasting grapes?
Well, I didn't think about it. I just read the
You just-
recipe and thought, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
let's try that.
Well, hey, great.
And it was delicious.
Very
So,
good.
Yeah.
We're in this season looking at these multiplication master classes at how do we move in our churches and in our communities from a spirit of welcome to inviting folks into deep belonging. You said you've embraced a spirit of yes recently, and I know from just scouring your website, this might manifest in any number of different ways. You've got a number of communities within the community that is St. Barnabas. Where does that spirit of yes meet this conversation of helping folks move from receiving welcome to finding belonging?
Yeah, I think that we've started 2 new worship experiences in the last year. Both of which were aimed at not happening on Sundays. For one thing, opportunities to worship during midweek. One of them is on Wednesday evening and one of them is on Thursday evening. Targeted especially towards younger families. And so we really were saying, like, we need a place where people can worship, even if your kid plays select softball or whatever,
Sure.
whatever's on the weekend. Because they can't come to church if they're out doing those kinds of things. So to provide an opportunity and a space where people could worship on a midweek experience. And then our Thursday night experience is really targeted towards our preschool families. We have a preschool in our church with about 150 kids in it. So it's a big operation. Yeah. And we thought, this is a mission field that's ripe for the taking. And so we began something called Wiggle Church with the help of Beth Evers. And so it's been really incredible. We probably have between 60 and 80 people at that worship experience every week. And then we said, okay, so now they're connected in some way. How do we move them to a deeper connection? And so we began to think about what are other events that might appeal to those kinds of folks. And we've just been providing opportunities to meet people kind of where they are. Yeah. And say we have opportunities for mission, we have opportunities to have fun together with the church family. And I know there are families there that are a part of those experiences who, if you asked them, what's your church home? They would say, they haven't joined, but they would say St. Barnabas is their home. And we see them turning to us when something happens and they need us, a child in the hospital, and we respond. And so, that kind of thing happens. And you begin to see people move from this surface level connection to something deeper. Yeah. We just did a big event called a block party. Yeah. We did it. We've done it 2 years now. This crazy idea that we would invite the people who live around our church to come to our church.
Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the first year we said, well, let's do it the old fashioned way. Let's actually put out some invitations. And so our leadership team said, okay, we'll do that. So we printed out maps of all the neighborhoods around our church, and we decided we would distribute 1,000 door hangers. And so everybody took about 100, and we said, this is your area. We need you to put one on every house. And so that's exactly what happened. And we had, big inflatable games and fun things to do.
Yeah.
And so we said, come and just have fun with us. Just let us meet you and get connected in some way. And we had about 250 families the first time that people came. And then last year we had over 500 people who came again this past summer. And it's, it's nothing fancy. It's, sprinklers in the yard. Who knew little
Sure.
kids
Yeah.
love
Yep.
sprinklers so
Yep.
much? But we had a snow cone truck, and we had, bubbles, and
Hot dogs. You had hot dogs.
we had a make your own nacho bar.
All
Okay,
right. You
nice.
branched out from church hot dogs.
Yes, we moved
Nacho
beyond-
average block party.
Nacho average block party.
No.
And it was so much fun. And we saw about 50 of our families that are connected to our Wiggle Church and to our modern service come and connect with us on a different level. And so we're counting those moments of engagement with those other people, because we're trying to say, you're not just here on Thursday nights, you're here at other things too. You're connecting with us. Whether we're building beds with Sleep in Heavenly Peace and they come to that, we're counting those moments of connection. And so it was funny too, because one of the little kids came up to me. He was like, you belong at Wiggle Church. And I was like, yes, I do go to Wiggle Church. I don't live at Wiggle Church, but that's where he knew me from. And here I was, like, outside, not wearing my Wiggle Church t-shirt.
Yep.
And so it was just, it was really awesome to see people being engaged. And we discovered another great trick that everyone should learn. It's called Ticket Leap, which is a free app that you can do. And so we said to people, we put this out, here's how you can get tickets, which are free, because we also needed them to sign a waiver, because we were going to be doing inflatable games and all that stuff. And so in order to get your free ticket, you have to give us your name and some contact information, which now we have captured. And so when Bible school came around, it was like, oh, perfect opportunity to invite families with children to come back to our Bible school. And so it's a really wonderful opportunity to collect that information in a way that you can utilize for a future event. So it's been really helpful to us to begin to use that tool that's free to say, we can then invite people back to other things besides just that.
Kissa, you brought up like 3 of the big things we're going to talk about in masterclasses just in this one story. So I want to just call those out for a minute. 1, we talk in our Genesis cohort as a group where we start talking about trying new things, doing new things. And we talk about the difference between guesting and hosting, right? When we're starting a new expression of the faith, we oftentimes rely a lot on guesting, where we're relying on being invited into a space that someone else has curated. We're invited into someone's home or someone's business. When we're talking about visit to belonging or guest to belonging, we're talking about hosting. We're talking about situations that the church has curated in some way, like a block party or a worship service or even some other kind of gathering, and folks are coming in to be a part of that. Historically, we do a pretty good job of that in the church. We know how to host people, right?
Yeah.
We may miss some of the nuances of did we greet them at the parking lot? Did we do all that? But we know how to host people. We do it every week for Sunday and worship. We don't always capture information well. And so something like Ticket Leap is huge, because I've watched churches do this a variety of different ways. Ticket Leap's a great resource. I've watched a church, our community UMC in Crum, for their grand opening, found a company that had a photo booth that would email you the photos. And so they worked with the folks because they knew them, wasn't a waiver that they would hold information. And they're like, hey, if we use your photo booth, can we also get the information, the email list that's produced by people who take photos and the picture of those?
Yeah.
And of course, people said yes. So that capturing of information is huge, and a repeat invite. And then the third thing I would say is this idea of constituent, which is not a word you used, but it is a word that shows up on every year-end paperwork for pastors. And we're like, what is a constituent?
Yep.
Right? So Owen did some work on this last year and kind of put some information out there. Very simple definition. You have a lot of constituents. people who call your church their home. If something were to happen or they needed something, they would look to your church for pastoral care and guidance, for a community of faith to belong to. And so while they may not be ready to take that next step into a layer of membership or even leadership, they absolutely are a part of the ministry of your church. So you touched on all of those and totally reaffirmed why St. Barnabas is one of our stops on this masterclass tour.
Yeah, we are going to be hosting that, so we hope people will come to hear more about that. Not just what's happening at St. Barnabas, but how we can all do a better job of that. Well, and it's interesting, too, because our preschool asked the question, do you have a church home, when people register their kids? And last year, we had about 10 families that said yes, that St. Barnabas was their church home. So we have, lots more kids than 10. And so what we noticed, though, is a rise in that number. So about 25 families this year say St. Barnabas is their church home. So we're seeing this making an impact. And we know that some of the people who come to our Wiggle Church experience are already churched. They have a church home, and we're super happy about that. This is just another opportunity for us to pour into their kids, and we're happy that they're there, and they're certainly welcome to be there. But it's been an interesting thing to see how they bring that back to their local church too. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, this idea of Wiggle Church, this idea of multiplying Jesus followers, right, which is what we're aiming for. Sometimes it's kingdom work, not castle work, right? And that's one of those manifestations of that. They may be somewhere else on Sunday morning, but you're invested in the discipleship and the formation of that family in a meaningful way. And you don't know what God's going to do with that.
Right.
But there's goodness in the midst of that. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I know you've got a midweek, a Wednesday service, and then this Thursday community as well.
Yep.
So many of our United Methodist churches either currently have or historically have had a preschool, right? And your numbers of at least your starting point number of, we've got 150 kids in the preschool, 10 of which claim us. That's a pretty standard percentage, right, across the way. And one of the questions folks have wrestled with is, how do we form community, right? It's easy now that Wiggle Church is up and going. Again, shout out to Beth Evers, friend of the pod, and kind of originator in our space of the Wiggle Church dynamic and guru to help y'all get started. It's easy to see that connection between what you're doing now and how folks are finding belonging in that connection between church and preschool. How did y'all take those first couple of steps to kind of create the community where belonging might happen, right? It's great to look back and go now, hey, you got 60 to 80 folks on Wiggle Church on Thursday night. That's a huge celebration, and we should celebrate it, right? But how did y'all, for churches that are hearing this going, I want to help those guests in our building find a place of belonging here, but we don't really know how to begin or what to do. What would you, I mean, not that we're going to give the whole thing in this 5 minutes, but where's some places of beginning?
Well, one very simple way is that we began to all of our clergy staff began to lead chapel. So every week, for 2 days every week, we are in the sanctuary space with the preschool kids. And so they begin to know us. So it does kind of make you feel like a rock star, too, when you walk down the hall and all the preschoolers are like, hi, Pastor Kissa, and they're like waving. And, it's like, oh, look, I feel like I'm somebody. But we began relationship building with kids. And so then when I would see one of them in the grocery store and I knew their name and their parents are like, how do you know my kid's name? And then I had an opportunity to introduce myself as the pastor where their child goes to our preschool. So we began just a very simple way of investing in kids. And so when you walk down the hall and you see all the kids and you know their names, that matters. And so that was kind of the beginning, a very simple way that you can make a connection. And then we began I heard Beth speak about Wiggle Church at a board of ministry thing I was at. And I was like, we have all of these people and we don't make a connection with them, but we need to. And so it was like God said, here's the opportunity to say yes. And we applied for a grant from the conference, and they were gracious enough to help us with the beginning funding of that. And it has just taken off and been really fun to watch what God's going to do there. Yeah. And so it's been really neat to see them.
I'm curious because there are, both of you in your context have different worship services that serve different populations, different demographic groups, different kind of target audiences, if you will. For St. Barnabas, whether you're coming on Sunday morning, Wednesday night, Thursday night, what does that spirit of welcome look like that's different and tailored in each of those, right? So I'm going to make some assumptions, and they could be wrong. I'm going to assume on Sunday morning you've got some greeters at the door, maybe a person at the parking lot or at the entry of the worship space. You've got somebody ushering inside the building, making sure everybody's got seats. But that's probably not the same for Wiggle Church and for the Thursday night service that kind of reaches families with youth and is primarily youth-led, if I remember right.
Correct.
So what does welcome look like that's different in those spaces?
Well, for Thursday night, welcome looks like us standing at the door saying, here's where the goldfish are, because everybody likes to eat goldfish. And, here's where, and we have toys set out. So we have a 30-minute playtime, which is an opportunity for our volunteers to engage with families and parents. We also noticed that parents really need to talk to other parents, because being a parent is hard work, and you like to know that you're not the only one who's either getting it right or not getting it right sometimes. And so the parents kind of congregate together, and so the kids play, and we have special toys that only come out for Wiggle Church. They're nowhere else. And so we have this so it looks very kind of organic, but we're pretty intentional about walking around and visiting with kids and saying hello and playing with them, and them engaging with one another and eating goldfish. So, unlimited supply of goldfish. Goldfish is part of the ministry of Wiggle
For sure.
Church.
I think Sunday mornings might be better if we had goldfish all the time when we walk in the door,
Not
too.
sponsored, but we'd welcome a goldfish sponsorship.
Absolutely, yes. We had popcorn last week, so like fresh popped popcorn for Wiggle Church. It was
nice.
Changed it up a little. So that's kind of what it looks like on Thursday night. On Wednesday night, it's much more relaxed. We have folks that kind of stand and greet people who come in, but really it's about music in that service. It's really musically driven, kind of just organically happens, but we have an opportunity to visit folks. We sit around tables, and so it's kind of it's a very different vibe, but it's really kind of what our teenagers had asked for.
Yeah.
And we said yes. That was a really scary yes when that one happened. So I was like, wow, I don't know how God's going to work all this out, but he did. So it was good.
God always does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the freedom to be able to think about the context you're in, right? Whether that's a context of the community and the mission field around the church, or the context of the service that's kind of evolving that the Holy Spirit is leading you into, the freedom to think about that and be able to interpret that differently and allow yourself to say yes to an experiment that may be a little scary. And here's the thing, if you try it and it doesn't work, you just try something else. You just do something different the next time.
Because yes is not forever. Yes is to the experiment, and it may fail according to what you initially anticipated, right? But you will have learned something meaningful about yourself, about God, about the community, in a way that gives that new life in a different way and different expression. I love how you described, and you didn't use this language, but it feels like there's like the official structures of welcome, right? That we like to have, but there's also the kind of the culture that goes underneath it, right? Where parents are helping other parents find welcome, right? Like if I had to name Martin's superpower across our multiple languages of service, it's not in the official structured stuff. We have the official structured stuff, right? We've got the guy at the parking lot. We've got the people at the welcome. There's like 3 stops of smiling faces between the parking lot and the door of the sanctuary, right? That's all great. But the superpower is the way in which the people who aren't officially on duty that day greet and welcome and notice new people in their midst, in every space and place that we have, right? That willingness to say, I'm going to overcome this impulse of uncertainty and go introduce myself to somebody that I don't know, even if maybe I should know you, but I'm willing to brave, kind of that you might tell me otherwise, right? But it sounds like you've got a lot in your places and spaces, that informal culture piece in addition to the official formal structured pieces.
Yeah, we pretty much tell people if there's someone sitting on your pew and you don't know who they are, you should welcome them. Even if they go to a different service that you don't go to and they're just there for that week, that's fine. You've now met somebody that's part of the community that you didn't know before. So it's okay to say, I don't believe we've met. and introduce yourself and say, we're glad you're here. So,
Well, and that's one of the stumbling blocks for folks, right? Like I might introduce myself to someone, but they've probably been a member here a long time and I just haven't seen them. And am I going to embarrass myself if I introduce myself to them for the first time? And they tell me they've been a church member here for 50 years. And so there is a level of that to overcome, to give some folks some tools to say, it's all right to say, I don't believe we've met before, or even just, could you remind me of your name? Right. So if I say to Daniel, could you remind me of your name?
Right.
Maybe we've met 87 times.
Right.
Or maybe it's our first time. That question still is an appropriate way to open that conversation that doesn't leave you feeling like you should have already know their name and we put those shoulds on our shoulders.
And shoulds never do anything
They
positive.
never do anything positive. They don't.
They heap into piles and smell.
Yeah.
It's not good. As you think about your next steps, right? Because this work doesn't stop. You said we're going to say yes to whatever God invites. That yes doesn't end July 8th of 2025. What part of the heart of St. Barnabas do you hope gets expressed in any future yeses that come after this?
well, we're working with a local elementary school to work with third graders in their reading ministry.
Oh, nice.
In a ministry to help kids read better. I'll blame this one on Philip Rhodes. So Philip shared a statistic with me not too long ago about third grade reading levels, that's how the state determines how many prisons they need to build. The higher the level of reading in third grade, the less prisons they're going to need. And so I'm like, that seems like something we could help. That could be a systemic change,
right.
Not just a one-off, hey, this kid reads better, but how could we help third graders read better and then become more, more of what God wants them to be. And so we have been in conversation with our local elementary school about how we're going to engage this year with third graders in reading. We don't have it all worked out yet. We haven't got it all figured out. But we know that's where that's a new ministry that's going to start. And, just it came out of that statistic and us beginning to think, what else could we do? And so we already have a ministry at our high school. They come and eat lunch at our church.
Yeah.
Between about 400 high school students come every Thursday for a free lunch that we serve in about 30 minutes. It's really crazy.
How do you get that many people through? I mean, I'm sorry, this is an amazing ministry, a powerful thing, but I can't imagine how the line works.
It's rapid fire. That's
Who cooks?
Exactly how. Volunteers cook and serve, and it is a well-oiled machine. It's been going. That ministry has been happening for over 20 years at St. Barnabas.
Awesome.
It started very small with like 20, 30 kids, and now has grown pretty substantially. And so it's called Feeding Frenzy, and that is it is the correct name for sure. It's a little bit of a frenzy.
Yeah.
But it's super fun, and the kids are so appreciative, and just a wonderful ministry to say, we love you just right where you are, and there's no strings attached to this lunch. It's not like we're going to, make you stay and listen to some, presentation of the gospel. We want you to see the gospel lived out in free food.
Yeah.
And so they used to charge for it, and then about 5 years ago, we were like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to open it for free. And we use our Christmas Eve offering to fund that ministry.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So everything that comes in on Christmas Eve funds that for the year. So, and like this last year, the seniors on the last Thursday that they were at our church for this school year brought all of our volunteers, all of the women, a dozen roses, and they brought all the men boxes of candy, and just to say thank you for the ministry that they've received from the church. That was super cool.
Yeah.
So.
One of the foundational questions, right, is if your church disappeared, would your neighborhood miss it? And it sounds like you've got a clear and resounding yes.
It's interesting too, because when I'll run into somebody like at a restaurant and this happened recently. We were at a restaurant, and I had my name tag on from the church, and she said, "Are you the pastor at St. Barnabas?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Oh, I used to go to church. I used to go to lunch there on Thursdays when I was a student at Martin High School." And she's like, "It was always so good. The food was so good." And I was like, "Well, fantastic, but I mean, this is somebody, she's probably in her late 20s,
Yeah.
who still remembers coming to our church and eating lunch. And so it's a ministry that you never know what will grow out of that. We talk about that all the time. We don't know what seeds got planted there that will bear fruit later on.
Planting core memories of love and experience and connection at church is a powerful gift, right? Because you don't know how long it's going to stick. You don't know. And in so many of the things we do, we're planting seeds that we don't always get to see flourish, but it's so beautiful. I love that. And who else got to overhear that story, right? As you were having that encounter.
Yeah,
Such a gift.
I was at a conference not too long ago at Church of the Resurrection in Kansas City. And the speaker said, we like to plant trees because trees are instantaneous.
Sure.
Like you get to eat the apples from the tree and sit in the shade of the tree. But what God asks us to do is plant seeds that we may never sit under the shade of or eat the fruit of.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the cool part about that ministry is we don't know what's going to happen with it, but we know something's going to happen with it. So, and I think particularly for teenagers to experience the love of God, just in a simple meal, We got up this morning and cooked you a hamburger.
Right. Well, and I don't know about your neighborhood, but when we look at the Mission Insight reports for our neighborhood, one of the reports that's available is kind of like the religiosity index, or I can't remember the official terminology.
The religious insight.
Okay.
I got you.
She's supposed to know that stuff.
Conference staff. Okay.
If you need help with Mission Insight, email Jessica Vargas.
Yes. But in a 3-mile radius of our church in Bedford, so not far from Arlington, the number one held belief about Jesus, by a factor of like 3 times as many people held this belief about Jesus than any other belief about Jesus, was that followers of Jesus live a life that's incongruent with the teaching of Jesus. Number one, far and away. How do we mind that gap?
Right.
We mind that gap by feeding 400 kids every Thursday and changing that narrative, saying that this church never beat me over the head with the Bible. This church never judged me. This church just welcomed me and fed me and loved me, right? It's not something we can do overnight, right? This is one of those cherry trees. It takes like 7 years from seedling to first fruit, right? That's the work that we do. Right? I'd love to plant a tree, but at the same time, seeing how that grows over time, and not always being able to see it because we serve an itinerant system, right? Where somebody else may see that fruit born, right? But that invitation to keep planting is still there, and it's one of the small ways that we move from kind of welcoming to belonging. Kissa, you are doing amazing and awesome work. The folks at St. Barnabas are doing amazing and awesome work. And we hope that y'all keep telling the good story. One of the things that's hard for us is to, we get a little bashful when we start telling the good news of what God's doing in our midst, because we don't want to be those people who are bragging about all the stuff. God's doing amazing stuff. I hope people hear this story and lock in and go, what of this can I learn from? What of this can I do? What am I doing that I need to tell that good story in the midst of it? So thank you for taking time to come and sit in front of 18,000 cameras and microphones and things to make sure that our Horizon Texas Conference gets to hear this good news. If there was one thing you wanted us to leave with today, if there was nothing else, if we managed to miss it all, what's one thing you want us to leave with?
I think just don't be afraid to try anything, because if you say yes to God, you never know what He's going to do.
Amen.
So that's been true for us. Yeah,
Amen. Thank you so much.
for sure.
Stacey, thank you. And thank you for joining us on Pod Strange. I've been told a story that you might know something about cookies.
Yes, I have my own cookie business. It's called Madison's Blessed Cookies. I raise the money for the church on Sundays and Wednesday nights, just to raise money for the church.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about the cookies.
The cookies are chocolate chip brown butter, and it's our signature cookie. It's a delicious cookie me and my mom made.
Could you tell me what's in the cookie?
It's brown butter, flour, sugar, eggs, everything you would need for a cookie basically, and then chocolate chips. and then like how it becomes brown butter, you like brown the butter in a pan, and you can't do it too long because then it will burn and you will have to redo it. Yeah.
You answered one of my big questions. That brown butter you cannot buy from the store.
Yes, you cannot buy
You have
the brown.
to make it.
Yes.
And brown butter is better than burnt butter.
Way better, yes.
And do you ever put extra chocolate chips in them?
Sometimes we put like a amount of
Like a certain amount, so
Yeah.
you have control of your ingredients?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were to describe in a few words what your cookies taste like, they're your signature cookie, what's your best word for how they taste?
soft in the middle, like crunchy on the outside, and like the chocolate chips stick out too, and it tastes like good and gooey, the chocolate chips. And also we encourage when they buy, we say you should warm it up in the microwave because then you got ooey gooey,
Yeah.
crunchy, delicious chocolate chip cookie.
That sounds amazing. One of the things you said at the beginning was that this is to help the church.
Yes.
How does this help the church?
I have a pledge that is $500, and like we raise the money for the church. Well, I raise the money for the church. They buy the cookies. We save the money and put them in like a pledge for my pledge, and we have raised $300 so far. And we just like appreciate everyone who buys the cookies and yeah, we just appreciate them, and yeah.
That's awesome. $500
Yes.
is your pledge. I got some grown church people who could pledge $500 and do good.
Yeah. And I remember a story your mom told me from the beginning with this about in the first or second batch of cookies
Yeah.
you made, that your dad thought he was just going to get a cookie.
Yeah.
And does your dad just get cookies?
No, absolutely not. He has to pay up.
How much is a cookie?
$2.
$2. Does he ever give you more than $2?
No, he usually has $2 on him. Like, he packs them in his lunch for school.
Yeah, so he knows
Yeah.
when it's cookie day, so he can claim his cookies.
And, like, we take break. We are on a break this summer for, like, summertime because, you know, we don't want to sell cookies in summer. And we usually sell them at our Wednesday night lunch dinner thing that we do. So, yeah, we take a break since we don't have the dinner on summer. So, yeah.
Kissa, how has it been to watch Madison kind of venture out in this way with this heart and love for cookies and God's people?
Well, I mean, cookies are delicious, and God's love is pretty delicious. But it's been really fun to watch her just be so excited to get to share that with the church.
Yeah.
And she has a heart for missions, and she cares about people. So
I also have usual people I go to every Sunday when I have cookies. They
Okay.
always buy because they're always like, "Where are my cookies?" I'm like, "Sorry, summer break."
Has anybody given you a $2 bill yet for their $2 cookie?
No.
Oh, okay.
but
Actually-
sometimes they give her extra.
Yeah.
Ooh, nice.
And they say keep the money because they know it's for the church. And I'm like, thank you so much.
Very cool.
Like, I appreciate everyone who buys the cookies. And, like, I appreciate everyone because they say they're good and everything like that. So, yeah.
If another kid was listening to this and they had a big idea of how they could help God and God's people in the church, what would you say to them to encourage them?
I would say they just try their hardest, do their best. Everything will be fine. Just believe in yourself and believe in God that He will help you out. And, like, just believe in Him and you.
Amen. Madison, you rock and you're amazing. And I bet those cookies are fantastic.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
You did so good.
Good job.
You did your first podcast.
This has been Pod Strangely Warm. If you enjoyed our conversation today, know that you can find us anywhere you find podcasts. On Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, any and all the places, we are there. So if you want to continue the good United Methodist conversation that you've been a part of today, find us, like us, rate us, review us, and share with a friend so that the good news that is happening right here in our own midst can amplify even more.
Can you point it at this? This is y'all's camera. If you want to talk to
Oh.
your people or the conference or anyone,
If you want to break the
Okay.
fourth
Hello,
wall.
Dustin.
fourth wall.
How are you? Here's your color card.
So that's what the one we're looking at while I'm talking.
We don't
or
really
we
No,
look
so
at
we're
it.
just having a
We're
conversation.
We're just talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
If
But-
you want to like call someone out or talk to that's
Yeah.
Okay.
I never do. Except for right now when I talked to Dustin and he did not like it.
When I worked at summer camp and I would do interviews with like counselors and stuff, they would have a microphone and they would whisper into it and talk to me, and I would hate that in the editing process.
Why?
Why do you hate it so much?
You shouldn't have. You've now given an ammo.
Conversation this way.
His only saving grace is he didn't tell us with this
Yeah.
a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
could do it every time we record something.
All right.
We could.